Staff Sergeant Marcus Torres had promised himself this vacation would be different. No tactical assessments, no perimeter checks, no unconscious scanning for threats. Just 7 days of sun, sand, and the first real relaxation he'd attempted in 3 years. The Paradise Cove resort stretched before him like a postcard. Pristine white buildings with terracotta roofs cascading down to a private beach where turquoise waves lapped at powder-soft sand. "Still doing threat assessments, Torres?" The familiar voice belonged to Sergeant First Class Diana Mitchell, his longtime colleague from the 503rd Military Police Battalion at Fort Bragg. She stood beside him on the resort's check-in terrace, designer sunglasses pushed up into her regulation short blonde hair, a knowing smirk on her face. "Old habits," Marcus admitted, forcing his shoulders to relax. At 38, after 15 years of service including deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, and a dozen embassy protection details, switching off didn't come naturally. His dark eyes had already catalogued the resort's layout, main build. ING with reception and restaurants, 2 wings of guest rooms, scattered bungalows near the beach, a single access road, and 2 mini blind spots for his comfort. "Gentlemen, ladies," called out Master Sergeant Roy Chen, the reason they were all here. After 22 years of service, Roy was finally hanging up his uniform. "I appreciate you coming to help me practice retirement. Try not to arrest anyone before dinner?" Their group drew curious glances from other guests, 6 conspicuously fit adults with identical posture and similar haircuts, trying to blend in with the tourists. Besides Marcus, Diana, and Roy there was Sergeant Jake Williams, their hostage negotiations specialist, Corporal Emma Rodriguez, an expert in crowd control and riot response, and Staff Sergeant David Park, their tech and surveillance wizard. The Paradise Cove resort marketed itself as secluded luxury, 45 minutes from the nearest town, accessible only by a winding coastal road. It attracted a mix of wealthy Americans, European tourists, and the occasional celebrity seeking privacy. The isolation that made it exclusive also made Marcus's tactical mind uneasy. "Room 237, the desk clerk said, handing Marcus an old-fashioned key. "Ocean view as requested." "The bellhop will." "I've got it, thanks." Marcus lifted his single duffel bag, packed with the efficiency of someone used to rapid deployments. The others were similarly equipped. Even on vacation, military police traveled light and ready. As they walked to their rooms, Diana fell into step beside him. They'd served together for 8 years, through countless high-stress situations. She could read his moods better than his ex-wife ever had. "Talk to me, Marcus. What's got your spidey senses tingling?" "Nothing specific," he said, though that wasn't entirely true. "Just, this place is a security nightmare. One road in and out. No cell service except through the resort's Wi-Fi. Local police probably 30 minutes away on a good day. It's called vacation, not a forward operating base." She teased, but he caught her doing her own subtle assessment of their surroundings. Their rooms were adjacent, all 6 in a row on the 2nd floor of the main building. Pure coincidence, the desk clerk had insisted, though Marcus suspected Roy had arranged it. Old habits died hard. They naturally preferred to stick together, even off-duty. The afternoon passed pleasantly enough. They lounged by the pool, swapped war stories with beers in hand, and watched Roy attempt to flirt with a bartender half his age. But Marcus noticed how they'd unconsciously ged their chairs with overlapping fields of view, how conversation stopped whenever someone approached too quickly, how each of them sat where they could see both exits. You could take the MPs out of the military police battalion, but you couldn't take the military police out of the MPs. That evening, as they gathered for dinner at the resort's beachfront restaurant, Emma raised her margarita. "To Roy. May your retirement be filled with fishing, golf, and absolutely no paperwork." "Hear, hear," they chorused, clinking glasses. "You know what I won't miss?" Roy said, settling back in his chair. That 0300 phone call. Sergeant Chin, we've got a situation. Jake laughed. Remember that time in Kandahar? 50 locals convinced our convoy was stealing their goats. Turned out to be the biggest cultural misunderstanding of my career. Roy grinned. Thank God you speak Pashto, Jake. That's what we do, Diana said more seriously. Protect and serve, whether it's American soldiers overseas or local civilians who just want their goats back. Marcus nodded, sipping his beer. Their job was unique in the military, part law enforcement, part security, part diplomacy. They handled everything from routine traffic stops on base to full-scale riot control in hostile territories. Each of them brought specialized skills to their unit. Jake Williams had talked down more armed suspects than anyone could count, his calm Tennessee drawl diffusing situations that seemed headed for violence. Emma Rodriguez, despite being the youngest at 28, had an uncanny ability to read crowd dynamics and spot trouble before it started. David Park could hack any security system and had saved their lives more than once with his surveillance expertise. Diana Mitchell was their tactical leader, cool under pressure with a sniper's patience. And Roy had been their moral compass, the one who reminded them that wearing a badge meant protecting everyone, not just Americans. Remember that embassy detail in Cairo? David said, scrolling through photos on his phone. When those protesters... A loud crash from the kitchen interrupted him. The dining room fell silent as guests turned toward the sound. Without discussing it, all 6 MPs had shifted in their seats, hands free, exits noted. A waiter emerged, apologetic. Sorry, folks. Just dropped a tray. Everyone please, enjoy your dinner. Conversation resumed, but Marcus caught Diana's eye. Both had noticed something off about the waiter, the way he moved, the tattoos barely visible under his collar, the quick skin he'd given the room. New staff? Marcus asked their actual waiter when he came to refill their water. Yes, sir. Several started this week. Busy season approaching. After dinner, they walked along the beach. The moon painted a silver path across the water, and somewhere in the distance, a band played at another resort. It should have been peaceful, but Marcus couldn't shake his unease. You're all seeing it too, right? Emma finally asked. I'm not being paranoid. The boats that came in this afternoon, David confirmed. Anchored just outside the swimming area, but nobody came ashore. The maintenance workers who seemed really interested in our conversation at the pool, Jake added. That car that's been parked at the edge of the lot since we arrived, Diana said. Local plates, but it's a rental. Roy sighed. So much for leaving the job behind. What do you think? Cartel? Kidnappers? Someone casing the resort? Could be nothing, Marcus said, though he didn't believe it. Rich tourists make tempting targets anywhere in the world. Or it could be something, Diana countered. Remember that briefing before we left? About increased cartel activity along this coast? They'd all sat through the same security brief, standard procedure before international travel, even to resort areas. The local cartels had been expanding operations, becoming bolder, sometimes targeting tourist areas to make statements or grab headlines. So what do we do? Emma asked. We're not exactly on duty here. We stay alert, Marcus said. Watch each other's backs. And maybe have a chat with resort security tomorrow, professional courtesy. They continued walking, a unit even on vacation, their relaxed appearance masking the constant vigilance that had kept them alive in much more dangerous places. The Paradise Cove resort might have postcards and piña coladas, but to 6 military police officers, it was just another sector that needed watching. As they headed back to their rooms, Marcus paused at his door. Hey, Roy? Yeah? Happy retirement, brother. But maybe don't get too comfortable just yet. Roy's weathered face cracked into a grin. Wouldn't dream of it. Inside his room, Marcus went through his nightly routine, checking windows, identifying hard cover, noting sight lines. He'd requested an ocean view, but not for the scenery. This room gave him a clear view of both the beach approach and the parking lot. He set his phone on the nightstand, wondering if he was being paranoid. The new staff could be exactly that. The boats might belong to fishing enthusiasts. The rental car could be another tourist who'd arrived early. But in 15 years of military police work, Marcus had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, every instinct was telling him that Paradise Cove was about to become anything but paradise. He thought about the other guests he'd observed during dinner, families with children, young couples, a group of retirees, several solo travelers focused on their laptops or phones. Soft targets, all of them. If something was coming, these people would need protection. Marcus lay in bed, listening to the ocean through his open window. Somewhere down the beach, that band was still playing, mixing with the sound of laughter from the resort's bar. Normal vacation sounds that somehow felt like the calm before a storm. Tomorrow, he decided, they'd do some reconnaissance. Casual-like, just tourists exploring the resort. But they'd map every entrance, every exit, every defensive position. They'd identify which staff members belonged and which were new faces. They'd figure out what those boats were doing. Because if there was one thing 6 military police officers couldn't do, even on vacation, it was stop being who they were. They were protectors, guardians, the thin blue line in camouflage. And if trouble was coming to Paradise Cove, it was about to meet 6 of Fort Bragg's finest. Marcus smiled in the darkness. Roy might be retiring, but tomorrow felt like they might all be back on duty. Some vacations, he thought, just weren't meant to be relaxing. The waves continued their endless rhythm against the shore, and somewhere in the night, a boat engine started up. Marcus noted the sound, filed it away, and settled in for what he suspected would be a very interesting week at Paradise Cove Resort. Dawn broke over Paradise Cove with picture-perfect beauty, golden light painting the waves, seabirds wheeling overhead, the air fresh with salt and tropical flowers. Marcus Torres had been awake since 0500, old habits refusing to acknowledge vacation hours. He stood on his balcony, coffee in hand, watching the resort come to life. The fishing boats were back, anchored just beyond the swimming buoys. Through the binoculars he'd packed, because what self-respecting MP traveled without basic surveillance equipment, Marcus counted 5 vessels, all looking weathered but equipped with engines far too powerful for simple fishing trips. No nets deployed, no fishing gear visible. "You seeing this?" Diana's voice came from the adjacent balcony. She had her own binoculars trained on the boats. "Yeah. Notice how they're positioned? Perfect overlapping fields of fire covering the entire beach approach. Could be coincidence," she said, not sounding convinced. "Could be." Marcus lowered his binoculars. "Breakfast in 15? I want to check something first." He dressed quickly, cargo shorts, loose Hawaiian shirt that concealed his build, comfortable shoes suitable for running. The shirt was ridiculous, covered in palm trees and parrots, a gift from his sister who said he needed to learn how to look like a tourist. If she could see him now, using it to hide his tactical assessment of a potential threat, she'd probably laugh. The resort's service areas were accessible through a door marked, "Staff Only," near the kitchen. Marcus had noted it during dinner, filing away the information automatically. Now he pushed through, adopting the confident walk of someone who belonged there. The morning shift was arriving, cooks, cleaners, maintenance workers streaming in for the day. Marcus pretended to be lost, a tourist looking for the gym, while his trained eyes catalogued faces. Most were locals he'd seen yesterday, chatting in rapid Spanish as they prepared for work. But there were others, the same hardied men from last night, plus a few more. They moved differently, scanning constantly, hands never far from their waistbands. ¿Está perdido, señor? A friendly voice interrupted his observations. An older woman in housekeeping uniform smiled at him. Sorry, looking for the fitness center, Marcus replied in deliberately accented Spanish, playing the hapless American tourist. She gave him directions, but as he turned to leave, he caught a fragment of conversation from the new workers. Tonight, all teams in position, the Colombian. The Colombian. That phrase set off alarm bells. The security briefing had mentioned increased cartel activity specifically related to protecting or extracting high-value targets. If someone at this resort was Colombian, they might be a cartel member in hiding, a government witness, or worse, the target of an impending operation. Marcus rejoined his team for breakfast, choosing a table with clear sight lines to all entrances. They fell into the easy rhythm of old friends, but underneath the casual conversation, information flowed. 3 more arrived this morning, David murmured between bites of eggs. 2 in maintenance uniforms, 1 in kitchen whites. All carrying. The night manager's nervous, Jake added. Saw him arguing with someone on the phone in his office. Kept looking at a guest list. Speaking of guests, Emma said, tilting her head toward the entrance. Check out the new arrival. A man in an expensive suit had entered, flanked by 2 obvious bodyguards. Latin American, mid-40s, trying to look casual but failing. His security detail was professional, clean lines of fire, textbook positioning. But it was the man's face that caught Marcus's attention. He'd seen it before, in briefings about cartel financial networks. Eduardo Morales, Diana whispered. Money man for the Guadalajara syndicate. What's he doing here? Meeting someone, Roy observed. Or running from something. The morning passed with forced normalcy. They split up, appearing to enjoy various resort activities while actually conducting reconnaissance. Marcus and Diana took paddleboards out, using the vantage point to study the approach routes from the water. Jake chatted up the bartenders, his easy charm extracting useful information about new staff and unusual requests. Emma and David mapped the resort's layout, identifying choke points and defensive positions. Roy, playing the gregarious retiree, made friends with the security staff. They reconvened for lunch at the pool bar, sharing intelligence through what sounded like vacation small talk. Beautiful view from the North Tower, David said, meaning he'd accessed the security camera blind spots. The spa's amazing, Emma added. Very exclusive. They're keeping the entire West Wing closed for a private event tonight. Fishing's supposed to be good around midnight, Jake contributed. That's what the dock workers say, anyway. Lot of boat traffic expected. Marcus processed the information, the tactical picture becoming clearer. The resort wasn't just being cased, it was being prepared for something specific. The question was what, and when. His answer came sooner than expected. Around 1,500 hours, while most guests dozed through the afternoon heat, Marcus noticed increased activity among the suspicious staff members. They were moving with purpose now, no longer pretending to work. He watched from behind his sunglasses as they positioned themselves at key points around the resort. A commotion near the pool caught his attention. A woman, early 30s, dark hair, designer sundress, was arguing with the pool attendant about accessing the closed West Wing. Her Spanish was Colombian accented, and she seemed genuinely distressed rather than entitled. Please, she was saying. I just need to get my medication from my room. It's important. Marcus recognized evasion tactics when he saw them. This woman was trying to get away from something, and the pool attendant, one of the new faces, wasn't buying her story. Lo siento, señora. The West Wing is closed. No exceptions. The woman's eyes darted around, settling briefly on Marcus. In that moment, he saw real fear. She wasn't a difficult guest, she was a target. He stood, stretching casually, and ambled over. Everything okay here? Maybe I can help. I think I'm staying in the West Wing too. The attendant's eyes hardened. No, senor. You are mistaken. The West Wing is closed. Really? That's weird. Pretty sure Mikey says. Marcus made a show of patting his pockets, using the movement to position himself between the woman and the increasingly agitated attendant. Diana appeared at his shoulder, all smiles and sunscreen. There you are, honey! Did you find out about the sunset cruise? Her arrival, perfectly timed as always, created a natural barrier. The woman seized her chance, slipping away toward the main building. The attendant spoke rapidly into a radio in code that Marcus recognized, not resort protocols, but tactical communications. We need to move, Marcus murmured to Diana. Now. They walked casually but quickly to the lobby, where their team had already begun to converge. The woman from the pool was at the front desk, speaking urgently with the manager. Please, she was saying. I need to call the embassy. It's an emergency. The manager looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, senora, but our phone lines are down for maintenance. Perhaps tomorrow, you don't understand. They found me. They're here. Marcus stepped forward. Ma'am? Maybe we can help. We have a satellite phone for emergencies. Her relief was palpable, but before she could respond, 3 men entered the lobby. Not the obvious cartel members, these were smoother, better dressed, more dangerous. The leader smiled at the woman. Alejandra. Your uncle's been worried. Time to come home. She backed away. I'm not going anywhere with you. This isn't a discussion. The man's hand moved to his jacket. 6 things happened simultaneously. Marcus stepped forward, intercepting the threat. Diana positioned herself to cover the civilians in the lobby. Jake began speaking in rapid Spanish, defusing, de-escalating. Emma activated the silent alarm behind the front desk. David disabled the lobby security cameras with his phone. Roy created a distraction by loudly demanding to speak to the manager about his room service. The 3 men hesitated, suddenly aware they were outnumbered by people who moved like professionals. The leader's eyes narrowed as he reassessed the situation. This doesn't concern you, American. Walk away. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile he'd learned in Baghdad that said, try me. Actually, I think it does. See, we're here on vacation, and you're really killing the vibe. Behind him, he sensed his team taking positions. No weapons drawn, they were technically unarmed, but 6 military police officers didn't need guns to be dangerous. The standoff lasted 10 seconds that felt like 10 minutes. Then the leader made a decision, backing toward the door. This isn't over, Alejandra. You know what happens to witnesses who run. They left, but Marcus knew it was temporary. They'd be back, and next time they'd bring numbers. Situation report. He ordered quietly once the men were gone. I count at least 12 hostiles on property, Emma reported. More arriving. Communications are compromised, David added. They've got control of the resort's systems. Local police response time is 40 minutes minimum, Roy said. I checked. We're on our own. Marcus turned to the woman, Alejandra. Federal witness? She nodded. I was supposed to testify next week. Cartel financial operations. They promised me protection, new identity. And they stashed you here. Diana shook her head. Brilliant. Who's your handler? DA Special Agent Martinez. But I haven't been able to reach him since yesterday. Because he was probably dead, Marcus thought but didn't say. The cartel had found her, eliminated her protection, and now they were closing in. The only thing standing between this woman and certain death was 6 off-duty MPs who'd come here to drink margaritas and celebrate a retirement. Okay, Marcus said, his command voice emerging naturally. Here's what we're going to do. David, I need you to find us a way to communicate with the outside world. Emma, Jake, start quietly evacuating civilians from vulnerable areas. Make it look natural, like resort activities. Roy, coordinate with any legitimate security staff who might help. Diana, you're with me. We're going to secure our witness and establish a defensive position. They moved with the fluid efficiency of a unit that had worked together for years. No questions, no hesitation. The vacation was officially over. As they escorted Alejandra to a more secure location, Marcus caught Diana's eye. So much for leaving the job behind. Did we ever really leave it? She replied. Outside, the beautiful afternoon continued. Tourists lounged by the pool, children played in the surf, couples strolled along the beach. None of them aware that Paradise Cove had just become a battleground, that 6 military police officers had just shifted from vacation mode to protective detail, or that by nightfall, the postcard-perfect resort would echo with the sound of gunfire. But that was still hours away. For now, Marcus focused on what he did best: assess, plan, protect. The cartel thought they were hunting easy prey. They were about to learn why you never corner American military police, even when they're supposedly off-duty. Especially when they're protecting someone who needs them. The first shots rang out at 5:47 a.m., shattering Paradise Cove's pre-dawn stillness. Marcus Torres was already awake, stationed at the window of the resort's security office where they'd established their makeshift command post. He'd been watching the parking lot when 3 pickup trucks smashed through the decorative gates, armed sicarios spilling out like a violent tide. "Contact front!" Marcus barked into the radio they'd appropriated from resort security. 3 vehicles, approximately 20 hostiles. They're coming in hot. The night had been deceptively quiet. After securing Alejandra in a staff break room with reinforced doors, the MPs had spent hours preparing. They'd evacuated most guests to the resort's hurricane shelter, positioned the more cooperative staff members as lookouts, and established defensive positions using furniture, potted plants, and anything else that could stop bullets. But Marcus had known the calm wouldn't last. The cartel had been testing them all night, suspicious cars cruising past, boats approaching then veering away, brief power outages that were clearly not accidental. Now came the real assault. "All units, execute contingency Alpha." Diana's voice crackled over the radio. She was with Alejandra, the last line of defense. "Remember, we hold until law enforcement arrives. ETA still 35 minutes. 35 minutes. Might as well be 35 years. The sicarios moved with military precision, suggesting cartel had hired ex-military or police. They advanced in tactical formation, using vehicles for cover, coordinating their movements. The leader, a scarred man Marcus had observed during yesterday's surveillance, shouted orders through a megaphone. "Attention, American friends! We only want the woman. Send her out, and everyone else lives. You have 5 minutes to comply." Counteroffer. Jake's Tennessee drawl came over the radio. He was positioned on the restaurant terrace, using overturned tables for cover. "How about y'all turn around and leave before this gets ugly?" The response was a burst of automatic fire that shredded the terrace furniture. The battle for Paradise Cove had begun. Marcus coordinated the defense from the security office, military training overriding any hesitation. "Emma, they're flanking left toward the pool area. Jake, keep them pinned on the terrace. David, what's our communication status?" "Still jammed," David reported from his position in the maintenance room, where he'd been trying to bypass the cartel's signal blockers. "But I might have something. The resort has an old emergency beacon from before they installed the digital system. If I can't..." His words were cut off by an explosion. The sicarios had blown open a service entrance. "Roy, shore up that breach," Marcus ordered. "Use anything you can find." What followed was urban warfare adapted to a luxury resort. The MPs used their environment brilliantly. Fire extinguishers became smoke screens, kitchen equipment turned into projectile weapons, maintenance tools transformed into close combat instruments. When the sicarios breached the kitchen, Emma met them with a barrage of boiling water and cooking oil from industrial fryers. Marcus found himself flashing back to Ramadi, the same controlled chaos, the same need to protect civilians while engaging hostiles. But this time, they were drastically outnumbered and essentially unarmed against automatic weapons. A group of sicarios reached the main stairwell leading to the second floor, and Alejandra's location. Marcus made a split-second decision. All units fall back to secondary positions. We're drawing them in. It was a risky strategy, deliberately allowing the enemy to advance while setting up a kill box. But with limited resources, they needed to maximize their advantages: superior training, knowledge of the layout, and the element of surprise. The sicarios pushed forward, emboldened by the apparent retreat. They didn't notice Jake positioning propane tanks from the restaurant kitchen. Didn't see Emma rigging the sprinkler system with cleaning chemicals. Didn't spot Roy setting up an improvised electrical trap using the resort's backup generator. Wait for it, Marcus murmured into his radio, watching through security cameras as the enemy massed in the lobby. Wait! The scarred leader stepped forward, weapon raised triumphantly. Your resistance is pointless. The Guadalajara cartel always, now! Jake detonated the propane tanks, creating a wall of flame that separated the Sicarios' advance team from their reinforcements. Emma triggered the modified sprinklers, dousing the enemy with a mixture of bleach and ammonia that created choking chloramine gas. Roy's electrical trap activated, sending non-lethal but incapacitating current through the wet floor. The lobby erupted in chaos. Half-blinded, choking sicarios stumbled into each other, their coordinated assault dissolving into panic. The MPs capitalized on the confusion, using improvised weapons and hand-to-hand combat techniques to systematically neutralize threats. Marcus engaged the scarred leader directly, their fight spilling onto the pool deck. The man was skilled, definitely former military, but Marcus had spent 15 years perfecting close-quarters combat. When the Sicario pulled a knife, Marcus used a pool skimmer to disarm him, following up with a series of strikes that left the man unconscious. But the victory was temporary. More vehicles were arriving, reinforcements responding to the initial assault team's distress calls. Marcus, we've got a problem. Diana's voice, tense but controlled. 3 boats incoming from the water. Looks like they're trying to cut off escape routes. The cartel was committed now, throwing everything at the resort. Marcus quickly recalculated their defensive positions. David, tell me you've got that beacon working. Almost there, yes. Signals broadcasting. But Marcus, we need to hold out at least 20 more minutes for any kind of response. 20 minutes against what looked like 40 or 50 sicarios. The odds weren't good. That's when inspiration struck. The West Wing, the one that had been closed for maintenance, actually housed the resort's conference facilities. Marcus had noted yesterday that a pharmaceutical company had left behind equipment from a recent corporate retreat. Emma, Jake, remember that chemistry demonstration set up in the conference center? Think you can make it go boom? On it, Emma replied, already understanding. A former chemistry major before joining the MPs, she'd been itching to put her knowledge to practical use. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as controlled chaos. While Diana maintained security on Alejandra, the rest of the team turned the resort into a giant booby trap. Emma and Jake rigged the conference center's demonstration chemicals into flashbangs and smoke devices. Roy electrified door handles and metal railings. David hacked the resort's sound system, using ultrasonic frequencies to disorient the attackers. When the second wave hit, they were ready. The Sicarios advanced more cautiously this time, but caution couldn't prepare them for what the MPs had created. Improvised explosives herded them into kill zones. Electrified barriers forced them into bottlenecks. The sound system assault left them disoriented and vulnerable to the MP's guerrilla tactics. Marcus coordinated it all from a new command post in the resort's spa, using mirrors and the building's glass architecture to maintain visibility while staying protected. His military experience had taught him that superior firepower could be countered with superior tactics, and 6 military police officers with home field advantage were proving that lesson true. "Marcus!" Diana's urgent call. "They're bringing up something heavy, looks like an RPG." Through the spa's panoramic windows, Marcus saw it, a Sicario raising a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, aiming at their position. Time slowed. In that crystalline moment, Marcus saw everything with perfect clarity. His team's positions, the civilians still sheltering below, Alejandra depending on their protection. The RPG fired. "Everybody down!" The explosion rocked the building, shattering glass and filling the air with smoke and debris. Marcus's ears rang, vision blurred, but training kicked in. He was already moving, checking his team. "Sound off! Diana up! Jake good! Emma functional! Roy still breathing! David's hit!" Marcus scrambled through the rubble to find David bleeding from shrapnel wounds. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but he needed medical attention. "I'm okay," David gasped. "Just finished the job." The attack had created a breach in their defenses. Sicarios were pouring through, sensing victory. Marcus made a command decision that would have gotten him court-martialed in any official operation. "All units converge on the shelter. We're making our stand." They fell back in good order, covering each other's retreat, dragging wounded David between them. The Sicarios pressed their advantage, but the MP's fighting withdrawal was textbook perfect, making the enemy pay for every foot of ground. In the shelter, a reinforced basement designed for hurricanes, they set up their final defensive position. Alejandro was there with the remaining guests and staff, terrified but unharmed. The MPs quickly organized the civilians, creating additional barriers and identifying anyone with medical or military experience who could help. "This is it," Diana said quietly to Marcus as they prepared for the final assault. "No more tricks, no more traps. Just us." "Just us," Marcus agreed. He looked at his team, bloodied, exhausted, but unbroken. "It's been an honor." The Sicarios massed outside the shelter doors. Through the reinforced walls, they could hear the scarred leader rallying his men for one final push. That's when they heard it, the distinctive whump-whump-whump of helicopter rotors. Multiple helicopters. David, despite his injuries, managed a grin. "Told you that beacon would work." The next few minutes were chaos of a different sort. Federal agents and Mexican Marines stormed the resort, catching the Sicarios in a perfect pincer movement. The cartel fighters, exhausted from battling the MPs and suddenly facing fresh troops with overwhelming firepower, began surrendering in droves. Marcus maintained security on the shelter until he received the all-clear from a DA commander. When they finally emerged, the resort looked like a war zone, which, he supposed, it had been. "Sergeant Torres?" The DA commander approached, looking at the scene with amazement. "We've been trying to extract our witness for 48 hours. How the hell did 6 off-duty MPs hold off an entire cartel hit squad?" Marcus looked at his team, then back at the commander. "Training, sir. And maybe a little bit of vacation creativity." Alejandra was safe. The civilians were unharmed. The cartel operation was shattered. And somewhere in the chaos, Marcus realized something important. This wasn't just about being unable to turn off their training. This was about who they were at their core. They were protectors. Warriors. The thin blue line that stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. Location didn't matter. Duty status didn't matter. When people needed protecting, they answered the call. even on vacation. The aftermath of the initial assault left Paradise Cove in chaos. Federal agents swarmed the property, detaining cartel fighters while forensic teams documented the battleground. But Marcus Torres knew the fight wasn't over. Something in the scarred leader's eyes during his arrest had telegraphed unfinished business. Sergeant Torres, DA Commander Patricia Reyes approached, her tactical vest still dusty from the operation. "We need to talk about your team's impressive defense. But first, we have a situation developing." She led Marcus to a makeshift command center in the resort's conference room. Screens displayed surveillance feeds, tactical maps, and intelligence reports. Other agents were coordinating search patterns and processing arrestees. "The man you subdued, Miguel Las Cicatriz Hernandez, is talking," Reyes explained. "Seems he's more afraid of his employers than federal prison. He says this whole operation is bigger than just one witness." On a monitor, Marcus could see Hernandez in restraints, speaking rapidly to interrogators. "You don't understand," the cartel lieutenant was saying. "Alejandro Reyes wasn't the only target. This was supposed to be a message. The Guadalajara cartel has people inside your agencies, your military, everywhere. They knew about the protection detail, knew exactly when they pulled out. This resort wasn't random. It was chosen because someone told us she'd be here." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. A mole inside federal law enforcement explained how the cartel had located their witness so precisely. It also meant the backup team, he said aloud. There should have been federal agents replacing the ones who were compromised. They never showed. Commander Reyes nodded grimly. "We're trying to raise them now." No response. "Hernandez claims they're not coming, that our reinforcements are walking into an ambush about 20 miles from here." The revelation hit like ice water. The assault on the resort wasn't the main event, it was a diversion. While every available agent rushed to Paradise Cove, a federal protection team was being systematically eliminated somewhere else. "We need to help them," Marcus said immediately. "With what resources?" "Every agent within 50 miles is already here or en route. Local police are overwhelmed. The Mexican military still has 6 combat-ready MPs," Marcus interrupted. "My team can move now." "Sergeant, you've already done more than, with respect, Commander, we haven't finished the job. American law enforcement officers are in danger. That makes it our business." Reyes studied him for a moment, then pulled up a map. Last known position was here, heading through the mountain pass toward the safe house where Alejandro was originally supposed to be relocated. If Hernandez is right, the cartel has set up a kill zone in the canyon. Classic ambush terrain, Marcus observed. High ground on both sides, limited escape routes. How many in the protection detail? 4 agents, plus 2 Mexican federal police escorts. They're good people, Torres. Some of the best we have. Then let's make sure they stay that way. Marcus activated his radio. "All units, rally at the command post. We've got federal agents in trouble and limited time to reach them." His team assembled quickly, still bearing the marks of their earlier battle, cuts, bruises, David with field dressings on his shrapnel wounds. But their eyes were alert, ready. "Sitrep?" Diana asked. Marcus laid out the situation tersely. "Federal protection detail, ambushed in Mountain Pass. We're the only response available. David, you're staying here to coordinate with Commander Reyes." "Like hell I am, that's an order. We need eyes here and you can barely walk. The rest of you gear up. Commander, I assume you can spare some tactical equipment?" Within minutes, the 5 MPs were equipped with borrowed weapons, body armor, and radios. A DA helicopter, the same one that had responded to David's beacon, would insert them near the ambush site. As they boarded, Commander Reyes grabbed Marcus's arm. "Torres, bring them home." "That's the plan, ma'am." The helicopter lifted off, Paradise Cove falling away beneath them. The beautiful coastline gave way to rugged mountains, steep canyons carved by ancient rivers. Perfect country for an ambush. 2 minutes to insertion, the pilot announced. Marcus gathered his team for a final brief. Intel suggests 30-plus sicarios, dug in with overlapping fields of fire. The protection detail is pinned in a box canyon, taking heavy fire. We go in fast, hit them from behind while they're focused on the feds. Questions? Rules of engagement? Emma asked. Whatever's necessary to save those agents. They fast stroped down onto a ridge overlooking the canyon. Even from a distance, they could hear the firefight, automatic weapons, the crack of sniper rifles, desperate radio chatter. The federal agents were holding but wouldn't last much longer. Through binoculars, Marcus assessed the tactical situation. The cartel had positioned fighters on both canyon walls, creating a lethal crossfire. The federal vehicles were stopped on the narrow road below, agents using them for cover while returning fire. 2 bodies already lay motionless in the dirt. Classic L-shaped ambush, Diana observed. They've got interlocking fields of fire and elevation advantage. Not for long, Marcus replied. Emma, Jake, take the north ridge. Diana, Roy, south ridge. I'll go straight up the middle, draw their attention. We hit them simultaneously in 4 minutes. You're going to walk into that kill zone alone? Diana asked. Not alone. Marcus checked his borrowed rifle. I'll have 5 guardian angels covering me. 4 minutes. Mark. They split up, moving through the rocky terrain with practiced stealth. Marcus descended toward the road, knowing he was about to make himself the world's most obvious target. But that was the point. Every sicario shooting at him wouldn't be shooting at the federal agents. As the 4th minute approached, Marcus stepped into the open, weapon raised. Federal agent! He shouted in Spanish, knowing it would confuse the sicarios just long enough. Drop your weapons! The response was immediate and violent. Automatic fire erupted from both ridges, bullets whining off rocks around him. Marcus dove for cover behind a boulder, returning controlled bursts while the sicarios revealed their positions. Right on schedule, his team opened up from behind the cartel positions. Emma and Jake hit the north ridge first, their assault catching the sicarios completely off guard. MPs were trained in small unit tactics, and in the close confines of the ridge, their precision overwhelmed the cartel's superior numbers. Diana and Roy struck the south ridge moments later, turning the ambushers into the ambushed. Sicarios who moments before had been confidently pinning down federal agents now found themselves in a crossfire. Marcus advanced up the middle, providing covering fire for the trapped agents. U.S. military police! He called out. Cavalry's here! The federal agents, recognizing the coordinated assault, pressed their advantage. Caught between the MP's flanking attacks and renewed pressure from below, the cartel's tactical advantage evaporated. But the sicarios were well trained and desperate. As their ambush collapsed, they regrouped for a counter-assault. The fighting became close and brutal, exactly the kind of combat MPs train for. Marcus found himself face-to-face with a sicario lieutenant who fought with the skill of special forces. They traded blows in the rocky terrain, years of training compressed into seconds of violence. The sicario was good, but Marcus had 15 years of experience keeping the peace in war zones. A final combination left the lieutenant unconscious. Around him, the tide was turning decisively. Emma had secured the north ridge, using captured weapons to establish overwatch. Jake was treating wounded federal agents while maintaining security. Diana and Roy had pushed the remaining sicarios into a defensive pocket, systematically reducing their position. That's when Marcus heard it, the distinctive sound of a helicopter. But not their extraction bird. This was coming from the wrong direction. Incoming! Diana shouted. A black helicopter crested the ridge, door gunner ready. The cartel's reinforcements had arrived, and they brought serious firepower. "Take cover!" Marcus ordered, but there was little shelter from aerial attack in the canyon. The door gunner opened up, heavy caliber rounds chewing into the rocky ground. Marcus sprinted for the federal vehicles, sliding into cover beside a wounded DA agent. "Thought you guys were on vacation," the agent managed through gritted teeth. "We were. Plans changed." Marcus keyed his radio. "Emma, you still got that federal radio?" "Affirmative." "Patch me through to their pilot." What followed was perhaps the most unusual negotiation in law enforcement history. Marcus, speaking through Emma's translation, identified himself to the cartel helicopter pilot, who turned out to be a former Mexican military aviator now flying for the highest bidder. "Captain, this is U.S. Army Military Police Sergeant Torres. Your ground force is defeated. Federal reinforcements are inbound. You can either break off now, or explain to international investigators why you fired on American law enforcement." The helicopter hovered, door gunner tracking targets but not firing. The moment stretched. Then the pilot's voice came back. "A warrior knows when the battle is lost. Safe travels, Sergeant." The helicopter peeled away, disappearing over the ridge. Without air support, the remaining sicarios began surrendering. As federal helicopters finally arrived with reinforcements, Marcus surveyed the battlefield. They'd saved 5 of the 6 protection detail agents. 1 had been killed in the initial ambush. 15 sicarios were in custody, with more scattered into the hills. The Guadalajara cartel's elaborate operation was in ruins. "Sergeant Torres?" One of the rescued DA agents approached. "Agent Michael Chin." "Aye, we owe you our lives." "How did you even know we were in trouble?" "Interrogation intel from the resort attack," Marcus explained. "Your man there, Hernandez, got talkative when he realized the game was up." "The resort? Wait, you're the MPs who fought off the whole assault? And then you came after us?" "Just doing our job," Marcus said, then smiled slightly. "Though I think I'm putting in for vacation pay." The flight back to Paradise Cove was subdued. They'd won, saved lives, disrupted a major cartel operation. But the cost was visible in David's injuries, the exhaustion on every face, the knowledge that they'd been one step away from disaster throughout. At the resort, now transformed into a federal crime scene, Commander Reyes was waiting. The intelligence Hernandez provided is solid gold. "We're rolling up the cartel's entire coastal operation." "And that mole he mentioned?" "Already in custody." "Glad to hear it," Marcus said. "About that vacation we were trying to take." Reyes laughed. "I think the DA owes you a week at any resort you choose. Preferably somewhere without cartel activity." "Is there such a place?" Diana asked dryly. "Good point." Reyes grew serious. "Listen, I know you're all active duty, but if you ever consider federal law enforcement, give me a call. We could use people with your initiative." Later, as the sun set over Paradise Cove, the 6 MPs gathered on the bullet-scarred terrace. Roy raised a beer, one of the few unbroken bottles from the bar. "To the worst vacation ever," he toasted. "To doing the job, wherever we find it," Marcus countered. They drank in comfortable silence, watching the waves roll in as if nothing had happened. Tomorrow there would be debriefings, paperwork, probably medals they'd never be allowed to discuss. But tonight they were just 6 cops who'd answered the call when it came. "So," Jake said eventually, "anyone know any good vacation spots in Kansas?" The laughter that followed echoed across the beach, mixing with the eternal sound of the sea. Paradise Cove would recover, tourists would return, and somewhere else, other protectors would stand watch. Because that's what they did. That's who they were. Even on vacation. The morning after the battle, Paradise Cove felt surreal. FBI evidence teams photographed bullet holes while maintenance crews swept broken glass. Tourists who'd sheltered during the fighting were being interviewed, their vacation stories now part of a federal investigation. The 6 MPs sat in the resort's damaged restaurant, finally eating the breakfast they'd missed the day before. "Well," Roy said, cutting into his eggs, "this isn't exactly how I pictured my retirement celebration." "You're not retired yet," Diana reminded him. "And after yesterday, I'm betting they extend your service." Marcus sipped his coffee, watching news helicopters circle overhead. The story had broken internationally. U.S. military police thwart cartel attack on Mexican resort. And his phone hadn't stopped buzzing with calls from reporters, brass, and worried family members. "Sir?" A young FBI agent approached their table. "The Attorney General is on secure line for you all." They exchanged glances. The Attorney General of the United States didn't typically call staff sergeants. The video conference was brief but unprecedented. The AG, flanked by officials from DOJ, DOD, and state, praised their actions while carefully navigating the diplomatic complexities of U.S. military personnel engaging in combat operations on Mexican soil. "Your actions saved numerous lives and disrupted a major transnational criminal organization," the AG concluded. "The President has been briefed and extends his personal thanks." After the call, Commander Reyes joined them. "That was interesting," Marcus said. "Are we getting medals or court-martials?" "Probably both," Reyes smiled. "The Mexican government is calling you heroes. Their president wants to award you the Order of the Aztec Eagle." "What about Alejandra?" Diana asked. "Safe. Already relocated with a new identity. Her testimony will help us dismantle the Guadalajara cartel's financial network. The operation you disrupted was their attempt to silence her and several other witnesses." Emma pushed her plate away. "So what happens now?" "We just go back to Fort Bragg like nothing happened." "Not exactly," Reyes said. "There's going to be a lot of attention on this. Press, investigations, probably some political fallout. But yes, eventually you'll return to duty." "Actually," Roy spoke up, "I've been thinking about that retirement thing." Later that morning, they gathered on the beach for an impromptu ceremony. The resort manager, despite everything his property had endured, insisted on hosting them. "I've been in the hospitality business for 30 years, he said. "I've never seen guests protect other guests like you did. Paradise Cove will always be your home." Local police, Mexican Marines, and federal agents formed an honor guard as the manager presented each MP with a ceremonial key to the resort. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. They'd effectively had the run of the place during the battle anyway. That afternoon brought a surprise visitor. General Patricia Williams, commanding officer of the U.S. Army Military Police Corps, arrived by helicopter. "At ease," she said as they snapped to attention. "Given the circumstances, I think we can skip the formalities. I've been fully briefed on your actions here. The Army is, impressed doesn't begin to cover it. You demonstrated exactly why military police are vital to our nation's security." She turned to Roy. "Master Sergeant Chin, I understand you're set to retire next week?" "Yes, ma'am." "How would you feel about one more assignment? We're creating a new training program, Advanced Resort Combat and Civilian Protection. Seems we need someone with recent practical experience." Roy glanced at his teammates, then grinned. "I'm listening, ma'am." The general addressed them all. "Each of you showed exceptional valor, tactical innovation, and dedication to duty. Your actions reflect the highest traditions of the Military Police Corps. There will be formal recognition, but for now..." She produced a bottle of aged bourbon. "I thought we might toast absent friends and battles won." As the sun began to set, they sat on the beach, sharing war stories with their commanding general. The conversation drifted from the recent battle to deployments past, fallen comrades, and the nature of service. "You know what struck me?" Jake said. "When everything went sideways, we didn't have to discuss what to do. We just did it. That's what training does," the general replied. "But it's more than that. It's who you are. Some people run from danger. Others run toward it. You six are definitely the latter." "7," Emma corrected. David coordinated the whole federal response from his hospital bed. David, who'd rejoined them after getting his wounds properly treated, raised his glass. Team effort. As darkness fell, they built a bonfire from debris left by the battle. The flames danced against the night sky while waves provided a rhythmic soundtrack. "I keep thinking about those federal agents we saved," Diana said. "They were ready to die protecting their witness. Just like we were." "That's the job," Marcus replied. "Doesn't matter if you're Army, DA, local police. We're all on the same side. Speaking of which," General Williams stood. "I need to head back. But before I go, Sergeant Torres, the Army Chief of Staff, asked me to relay a message. Quote, tell those MPs they've reminded us all what duty, honor, country really means." After she left, the 6 friends remained by the fire. Tomorrow would bring debriefings, investigations, and eventually a return to normal duty. But tonight they were just soldiers who'd answered the call. "You know," Roy mused, "I spent 22 years thinking retirement would mean leaving all this behind. The danger, the adrenaline, the purpose. But maybe it's not about leaving it behind. Maybe it's about finding new ways to serve. Like teaching the next generation how to turn a resort into a defensive position?" Jake suggested. "Exactly. Though hopefully they'll never need to use those skills." Marcus stood and walked to the water's edge, the others joining him. 6 military police officers, standing shoulder to shoulder, watching the moon rise over the Pacific. "We came here for a vacation," Marcus said finally. "Ended up in a war. But we also discovered something important." "What's that?" Emma asked. "That it doesn't matter where we are or what we're wearing. The mission never really ends. There will always be people who need protecting, always be those who prey on the innocent. And as long as that's true, we'll be there," Diana finished. They stood in silence, each processing the transformation they'd undergone. They'd arrived at Paradise Cove as tourists, became warriors by necessity, and emerged as something more, guardians whose commitment transcended duty stations or deployment orders. In the distance, lights from rescue vessels still searched the waters for any remaining cartel members. The resort's guests, those who'd chosen to stay, gathered in small groups, sharing their own stories of survival. And somewhere in a secure location, Alejandra Reyes was beginning her new life, free from fear because 6 off-duty MPs had refused to stand down. "Same time next year?" Jake asked with a wry smile. "Maybe somewhere quieter," Marcus replied. "Where's the fun in that?" Roy laughed. They turned back toward the resort, where federal agents and local police maintained security. Paradise Cove would rebuild, stronger and safer. The cartels would think twice before targeting American citizens. And 6 military police officers had learned that their oath of service had no expiration date. As they walked up the beach, Emma began humming the Army song. One by one, the others joined in, their voices carrying across the water. Not a formal ceremony or official event, just 6 soldiers honoring their calling under a canopy of stars. The transformation was complete. They'd always be the ones who ran toward danger, who stood between chaos and order, who answered when others called for help. Even on vacation. Especially on vacation. 3 months later, news broke that the Guadalajara cartel's leadership had been decimated. Operation Paradise, named after the resort battle, had resulted in over 200 arrests across 5 countries. The cartel's financial networks were exposed, their political connections severed, their reputation for invincibility shattered by 6 military police officers who'd been trying to take a vacation. Marcus Torres received the update while teaching a new batch of MPs at Fort Bragg. The Advanced Resort Combat Course, officially established after Paradise Cove, was already being requested by federal agencies and allied nations. Who knew there was such demand for learning how to weaponize pool equipment? The key, he told his students, is understanding that everywhere is a potential battlefield. Your duty doesn't end when you clock out. You are always a protector. Diana had been promoted and now led a special unit training military police in unconventional warfare tactics. Emma pursued her commission, inspired to blend her chemistry background with tactical operations. Jake became the Army's premier instructor in crisis negotiation. David, fully recovered, pioneered new methods of cyber warfare integration in field operations. And Roy? He delayed retirement just long enough to establish the training program, then surprised everyone by accepting a position as security consultant for an international resort chain. Someone's got to keep the tourists safe, he'd said with a wink. The cartel's defeat was undeniable. Though some questioned the extent of the MP's actions, most celebrated the powerful message sent: America does not bow to intimidation. Marcus, humble yet firm, quietly stepped back from the limelight, continuing duties without fanfare, steadfast in moral clarity. Their story stands as a testament to an enduring American truth, that genuine strength lies not in aggression but in preparedness, resolve, and the unwavering commitment to justice and liberty for all. What do you think about this incredible stand? Do you believe strength alone guarantees justice, or does real power lie in partnership, strategy, and bravery? Share your perspective in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping real-life stories of courage in the face of overwhelming odds.